Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of my Bigfoot sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to mybigfootsighting.com.
My Bigfoot sighting started when I was 12. My name's Jon Marshall. I run Cache Valley Bigfoot on Facebook and Instagram. I'm a researcher, author. I have 2 books out. They are both on Amazon under the title of Cache Valley Bigfoot. So that's me. I'll tell you my first encounter. I was 12 years old. I was on the golf course up in Smithfield, Utah. It's in northern Utah. It's about 10 miles from Logan, Utah, where Utah State University is. So me and my friend Jimmy were on the golf course. It was early spring. We went to find golf balls on the golf course because back then you could find golf balls and then go up to the clubhouse and sell them for 25 cents each. And so that's what all us kids did. We were just doing that, and we were down in this gully. I can't remember what hole it is, but there's a golf cart path that intersects a gully, so it goes in between it, kind of like a scar, or it cuts through it. So we're down this gully, and we're coming towards the golf cart path, and I see a dead deer. It was a doe, and it just looked out of place for some reason because there was no ice, so it didn't slip. It looked like it was fresh. There was no fur on the ground or spread around. It wasn't at all touched like you see them in the wintertime after they die. They'll have scavengers and coyotes and bobcats and all that stuff get at them. So I'm walking over to it, and I could see its neck, and its neck was snapped in a weird way, like it just got grabbed and snapped. And so I turn around to Jimmy, and as I turn around, his face just turns white, and he just drops everything and runs away up the gully. Well, I ran after him. So I go up the hill, and I catch up to him at the top of the gully, and I said, "Dude, what's going on?" And he kept screaming, "I thought it got you. I thought it got you." And I was like, "What got me? What are you talking about?" And he said, when I turned around, there was a big bramble bush behind me. And he said a big hairy arm reached over my right shoulder and was trying to grab me or touch me. I didn't see it. I didn't sense it. I just saw him run, and then I ran. So I was up at the top, and I was like, "Yeah, right. Just stop lying." And right when I said that, this roar, scream, whatever you want to call it, came out from that area. And then we heard just branches breaking and bushes getting snapped. And we heard heavy steps coming up the hillside at us. So I backed up. I either grabbed a rock or a stick, and I said, "It's going to pop out right here if it keeps coming." Because, it was happening so fast. And where it got to a point where it was going to head up and pop out, it stopped, and it went down the gully, up the other side, and popped out. And it was running. And it was running on 2 legs. All we saw was a big brown blur of fur or hair. It was just running. It is running so fast, and it was not on 4 legs. It was on 2 the whole time. And we watched it from the time it popped out. We watched it head up the canyon, the Smithfield Canyon, for about 20 to 30 seconds, and it was just running the whole time on 2 legs. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a person in a costume. It was just a creature. We didn't know what it was at first. So after we lost sight of it, we ran home. And we lived in Hyde Park, which is right next door to the town. And we got home and we didn't tell anybody what happened. We didn't know what it was. We just thought it was something that we'd never seen or heard about. I grew up, camping, hiking, and fishing, and gone hunting a few times, and so I was used to all the animals at that age in the area, or so I thought. So this happened on a Saturday. So on a Monday, we go to school, and we're supposed to do a book report on dinosaurs. And so our class went to the library, and I found this Time Life book called, I think it was either Mysterious Places or Mysterious Universe, something like that. And I'm going through it trying to find stuff on dinosaurs, and I turned to the B section, and there's a picture of Patty, of the Patterson film, and I stopped. I'm like, that's what we saw, and instantly I knew that's what we saw. So I was reading about it after I saw that picture. I started reading about what a Bigfoot was, and I called my friend Jimmy over, because we're in the same class, and he looked at it and he didn't even want to talk about it. He just turned around and said, nope. And he won't talk about it. I've talked to him since that happened. He says it was an alien. It could be, but that was his sense of it. But to me, it was a Bigfoot. I 100% believe it was a Bigfoot. I know what I saw. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a bear running on two legs. It wasn't a moose on two legs or an elk, deer. It was nothing of that. It was a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot. So that happened. Maybe a few weeks later, me and my other friend, I'm not going to name his name because he don't want me to, we were above our town in Hyde Park. And this is an area that we hiked in as kids. We were camping by ourselves at age like 8 above there, hiking by ourselves at 8, trying to find deer sheds and watching deer and elk and everything. And we're hiking up this hill. It's called Three Hills. And we looked over to a hill, a cedar hill, and we saw this big, tall, brown thing standing against this little windblown cave. It's called Devil's Cave, is what we called it. And there was an object there, like a big, tall, brown thing against the cave on the outside that we'd never seen before. And we hiked that canyon all the time. And I said, hey, what was that over there? And he's like, oh, it's probably a dead tree that fell off the mountain, because it's full of cedars. But the cedars aren't brown. They're like gray. And I said, well, that's a big cedar, and we've never seen that before. And so we're hiking up, we hiked back up the fields, up to this old abandoned cabin and back down. And I look over and that thing is gone. It's no longer by the side of the cave. And I said, well, hey, that thing's gone. Where'd it go? He said, well, it probably fell. I said, we would have heard it fall, because we were in a canyon and we weren't, we'd still be able to hear it fall, because it would fall down on rocks and everything and just cause a lot of noise. And I said, well, it's not there. So we just hiked down this hill. We're going down. We passed the mine in Hyde Park. There's an old abandoned mine. We walked down that road towards the, as we were leaving the canyon, and we heard something follow us in the trees. And my friend turned around, and when he turned around, he just ran. He ran past me. And he was almost crying, half screaming. And so I chased after him, and he keeps looking over his shoulder. I never looked back. I just watched him. And he kept looking over his shoulder. And by the time we got out to the bottom of the canyon, it opens up into this big meadow. And we stopped. And whatever was chasing us stopped. And he didn't want to say what it was. I thought it was a moose or something chasing us. I never saw it. So we ran to his house and talked to his dad. And his dad's a big mountain man kind of guy, hunts and fishes, and he does mountain man stuff. Like he makes his own jewelry and weapons and stuff like that. So we told him, and he went up to track it. And he backtracked it for a good 3 or 4 miles, he said. And the only thing he would say is that it was on 2 legs the whole time. And he said legs. He said he followed the footprints for 3 to 4 miles back to where it came from. And he said he never saw it. He could feel a presence, but that's all he said. He didn't say what it was. He just said he followed legs or it walking on 2 legs and the prints. So that was that as a 12-year-old. So now we go to where I'm 14. And we're at my family's cabin up Logan Canyon. It's up Card Canyon. And it's like 2 a.m. We're having a family reunion there with all my aunts and uncles and cousins. And all the cousins, they would sleep upstairs in the loft. And down below was a small hallway with a window that was off the backside of the cabin. And at 2 a.m, I woke up to my 2 uncles, Uncle Mike and Dave, pointing out the window and talking to themselves about, do you see that out there? Who is that? So I walk over to the window in the loft and look out the backside. And I could see a tall, big shadow in the trees, just standing there. And they kind of played it off like it was just, someone playing a prank. Well, I went back to bed. In the morning, I got up, and my grandpa was talking about it and asked what happened last night. And Uncle Mike said when they were in the front room sleeping, because we had a hide-a-bed for all the aunts and uncles who slept in the front room, there was a hide-a-bed. And they said something turned the doorknob on the back door of the cabin, like turned it. And that's when they got up and they checked out the back window. And that's all that happened. So they didn't talk about it anymore. They just said somebody turned the handle on the back door, was trying to come in. And I never asked him about it, but a few years later, like 5 years ago, I asked my cousin to ask his dad about it. And his dad just started laughing and said, "Oh, we were just playing a joke on you kids." And I'm like, first of all, I've been to that cabin for years with the family. We've never played jokes on people at 2 a.m. And with how they were acting and making sure there was nothing coming in, it was something. I think it was a Bigfoot. Card Canyon is where the cabin is. It's called Card Canyon. It's been known to have a high area of sightings. There's also lots of mountain lions up there. So there's lots of food sources up there. It's right off the road. There's a trail that leads up to the backside of Logan Canyon. It goes to Mount Logan. There's a river right there. Easy access, easy ways to get away. Lots of side canyons, everything. So that was when I was 14. And then my big one that happened to me is when I actually had one touch my tent. I was in the Wind Rivers. I was at Big Sandy Lake. And it was just a strange night. So the day of, I was fishing. I caught 2 trout. I cleaned them down by the lake. And while I was down there, I could hear something across the lake in this little rock fall area. It sounded like it was hitting rocks together. I kept hearing a clack, clack. And I put it off as rocks, falling down on each other. And so I get to camp, I make dinner, I clean up, and I sit up for a bit, watch the sunset, have a campfire, and I go to bed about 10 o'clock. And at 2 a.m, I woke up. And I'm laying there on my back, I'm looking at the tent around me, and I'm in the tent, and I could sense something out there. And my eyes were adjusting to the light and, to the darkness around me. And I look up and I could see a hand, just the top of the fingertips, pushed in my tent wall over where I was sleeping. And it was over my head, and the hand was huge. The size of that hand was probably the size of Shaq's. I saw a picture of Shaq's hand, looked like an actual size hand, and it was probably that same size. And it was just big. And I wasn't scared. I did notice that everything was real quiet. Like, it was dead quiet outside. I didn't hear no birds, no insects, no wind, nothing. And I kind of coughed and I shuffled my feet at the bottom, to make some noise. And I heard something outside my tent. It shuffled its feet and stepped back. And the hand slowly pulled away from my tent. And I said, "Hey, I know you're out there. Like, who's there?" And it just turned and walked away. I could hear it stepping away from me, hear it walking, heavy thumps, footfalls. It was 2 feet. And as they got farther and farther away, all the sounds came back. Everything came back. The insects, the birds, the night birds, came back. And I opened up my tent. I got my flashlight. I flashed to the area where it was walking. I didn't see anything. I didn't sense that it was still there. My thing with it is I think it heard me snoring or something, and I had a green little army tent that kind of blended into nature. Like it blended in really well. And I think you couldn't see me or figure out where I was, but it heard me snoring, and I think it touched my tent to make sure it was a tent or something else. I don't know. But I didn't feel any fear from it. I didn't feel fearful. I don't feel like it was going to attack me. I do know that it was a hand. It was a big hand that touched my tent. I was the only one there at that lake at that time because it was the end of the summer. It started school for all the kids. By this time, I was out of high school. So whoever it was at 2 a.m. is walking around the night at Big Sandy Lake was unnerving. After I thought about it, I'm like, well, that's, that thing could have just, opened up the tent and just, killed me. But it wasn't, it didn't feel like it had any of that intent. I think it was more curious. That's why it touched my tent. So I kind of have a side story to that. I can't remember his name. There's a Wyoming researcher who pretty much had the same thing happen to him. But with him, the Sasquatch fell on his tent and collapsed it. And I can't remember the whole story, but you can find it online. It's a Wyoming researcher and his first encounter with a Bigfoot. So those are those stories. So I had another one in the Wind Rivers. We were at Trapper Lake, but we moved camps. We were going to go up to Hart's Lake, and there was all these scouts with us. And we were hiking back to camp, me and my friend Chris. And we're going down this little path. We're trying to find a shortcut to Hart Lake. And we found a shortcut, but in between there's a small little valley, and there's a small pond. And we're going around the pond, and we find a dead elk. And it's been there for a few days. I mean, it was pretty much, it was gone. It was stripped. And right above the elk, about 100 yards down the trail, there was like a knoll that stretched for 100 yards down the trail right by us. And as we're hiking down this trail, I look up, and it was backlit by the sun. There was a creature standing there. And the first thing in my head is like, that's not a bear. It wasn't a moose. It had the outline of a person, but it was shown, it was backlit. And I saw the hair flowing in the wind, or, whatever you want to call it, in the breeze. And it was big. And Chris saw it too, but he just turned his head and kept walking. I think he thought it was a bear, but I said it out loud. I said, that's not a bear, and kept walking. I didn't stop. I just kept walking. I think it was more shocked that we were there, how it looked. It kind of looked like it was like, but we kept walking. We didn't really even think about it until we got back to camp. And that night in camp, we had some stuff stolen out of our coolers. And it was kind of weird. We lost some bread, we lost some eggs and stuff like that. And somebody said that they woke up and saw somebody in our camp, but they assumed it was one of the other boys in the troop. And it wasn't. So that was weird. So the next day, we're sitting around the camp, and we see a pack train coming up the trail, and it's led by 2 rangers from the Forest Service. And they're leading like 5 or 6 guys on these horses, and they have huge guns, huge, they did not look happy. And we're trying to talk to them, and they wouldn't talk to us at all. They were just, they had some sort of mission they were on, because they didn't want to talk to us, but I saw some of their guns that they had in their horse saddles in the side bags, and they were like big military type guns. And so we just blew it off like, there's some sort of training up the ways, and they're doing that in the backcountry. Well, that night, we just heard gunshots go off about, I don't know how far, but it was clear up the canyon where we were from. And the echoes were bouncing off the wall. And they let go probably 100 shots in about 5 minutes. It was just nonstop, shooting. And we didn't see him again. We did not see him again. They must have went out the backside of that canyon. But whatever they were shooting at they must have got or something, because we did not have any more issues with things in our camp or seeing anything else on that trip. So that's my stories of the Wind Rivers. And when I was 12, yeah, I don't know how much more detail I can get into it, because I was so young and everything. I've been a researcher since I was hardcore into it for the past 8 years. I started writing books about it and collecting stories, talking to people. I've talked to people in northern Utah who have had generational sightings on their property. There's a family in Paradise, Utah, that has them come down every year at the end of the fall harvest. They have tried to set up game cameras. They have tried to set up motion sensors. They do not work. They always seem to be at the wrong angle or at the wrong time of day, or the camera doesn't work, or something happens, to whatever. But they've had the same group of Sasquatch or Bigfoot on their property, they've said, since the 40s, when their parents bought it. And it's been in the family. It's a big farm. But they say they only wait till we're done harvesting and they come get the extra stuff off the vines, off the stalks, off the plants. And he said they do not like onions for some reason. But they'll take peppers and everything else. But they always wait until the family already has all theirs done. I talked to people that had sightings above Logan Canyon, up at White Pine Lake, where they've had rocks thrown at them. I've had people talk to me about seeing one, watching them in their cabin. It's a busy area. Up by Logan Canyon, northern Utah, it's a busy Bigfoot area. I think it's a corridor for them to travel through, because it connects. There's a trail/road that connects Idaho, Utah, and Colorado that goes clear across the top of those states of Utah. And you can see it on a map that it connects. And I think it's a thoroughfare. There is a family of maybe one or two families up there that I've heard about. I've been walked out of an area up by 20 Grove. I was hiking one day, and I was doing some research. I was going to put a camera out, and I got to this area, and I instantly knew I need to stop and turn around. My body felt it. My mind felt it. I was pretty much told it. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm turning around. I'm leaving. I think what happened is I got too close to a newborn or to a family. And the kids were out, or the kids were curious, or they were scared of me. So as I turned around and walked away, I could hear a Bigfoot parallel me. It paralleled me until I was far enough away from where I was, then it stopped. So all the anxiety and knowing that I had to leave that area left me. I believe they do have infrasound. That's kind of why I felt that stop, and I got to stop right now and turn around. I think it sent that out to me and said, you're too close. I have friends who believe they are interdimensional. I'm still not convinced about that. I do believe they have some kind of knowledge of the woods where they can blend in, like a chameleon. Some people think they have that kind of ability. I do know that most people who go camping in the woods have probably experienced one and not known it, or have walked by one and not seen it. I've walked by moose that were standing still, and when I turn around, I see them, and I walked right past them. There was actually a lady who did a study of mountain lions around the area of northern Utah. So she put out 100 or 200 game cameras, a lot of game cameras in all these areas of northern Utah. And she caught 90 different mountain lions on these cameras. And that's in one area of northern Utah, 90 separate mountain lions. So that's a lot for that area. And she said, in her article about it, she said she had people walking by mountain lions in broad daylight in very used trails and public areas that people just walked right by them, didn't even see them. And these are big mountain lions, and they're just under a bush, just right there by the trail. and she had them on camera with people walking a foot from them or 2 feet, like real close. Had kids running by them with their dogs, and it didn't do anything. It just sat there and watched. But they were right there. So I believe they can really hold still and not move. Also, most people aren't really aware of what's in the woods. They don't have they're always kind of busy. They have to do something. I'm not like that. I like to go out there and sit and listen. I watch, I feel, I sense. I've always had that kind of vibe in me in how I was raised and how I am. Most people don't know or listen to the woods. If you go into an area that is, you've done it for your whole life, the birds, what animals you'll see and everything, you can know if something's different. There's a sense to it. There's kind of like an anxiety to it. That's why I feel like I kind of had more experiences than other people, is because they don't stop and listen and look around and pause of their activities. Because most people go up to the woods for a day and they're doing like hiking, mountain biking or fishing or canoeing and trying to get done in, 5-6 hours. And I go sometimes for the whole day. I'll go up there and just sit. I haven't done it recently because I'm really busy right now, but yeah, it's what you should do. I've had people tell me about Bigfoot and UFOs. They have seen them after they saw a UFO or before they saw a UFO. That's kind of part of the interdimensional stuff. I think it's coincidence, because most of the time they're in areas where they're in a darkened sky. So they're in the forest, there's no light pollution, and they can see more of the night sky and see things in the sky, as well as have an experience with the Bigfoot. And they kind of put it side by side. I think some of that is coincidence. I know people have supposedly seen them get out of UFOs. I'm on the fence about that. I do know that people always say that movies like Hollywood, like Star Wars, with Chewbacca and everything, they think that movies tell like 90% truth. I think so. I think some of that's true. Like the new movie coming out about the space shuttle on the moon landing, and kind of how they did a set of photos and everything and videos. I think that's really true, how that happened. But that's a whole different subject. Bigfoot, to me, is a creature. It's an unknown hominid that hasn't been recognized yet. I've talked to Dr. Jeff Meldrum about it. I've been to his lab. It's amazing. He feels the same way. There's something there, he says. He says, with all the evidence they have with hair, scat, tracks, some of the prints they have, some of the weird prints they have, even now with the Olympic project in the Olympic Mountains up in Washington, they have found ground nests that are almost like a gorilla nest, and they're intertwined. And a bird can do that, but they said some of these branches are like, you have to have a thumb, you have to have hands and digits to actually do what they're doing with these ground nests. They have found tracks there and hair. I would love to go see it. That's one of my favorite things to do, is actually go out to areas that have had sightings. I want to go as soon as I can hear about it and get there as soon as possible. I've gone on a few of those. I've been told that you should not report it to the BFRO. I don't know why. I just know some people have had problems after they reported it to the BFRO with strange things after happening on their property. I'm just a researcher who enjoys this stuff. My books are on Amazon right now. They're a fun read. I get lots of good compliments on them. I'm currently writing book number 3. I'm supposed to have it out by the first of the year this year. Didn't happen. I lost half of it in a computer crash. So I started over, did that, and it's slowly coming together. I'm hoping to have it out by October, Halloween time, and then I'll be good for the rest of the year. And I've been doing some research down in Logan Canyon. We did a little research last week up there with some howls and wood knocks and I put a game camera out just to see what would happen in that area. I have lots of experiences with friends tell me, and random strangers tell me about their experiences. I'll tell you one right now. So my wife and I were camping up Logan Canyon, and we were talking to the camp host. We were sitting by the campfire. The camp host came over, him and his wife, and they were talking to us, and somehow the subject of Bigfoot came up. And the camp host got really excited. And we started talking about it, and she finally says, well, I got to tell you something. She says, I have a sister who has a picture of a family of 3. She has 2 separate pictures. They were on her Polaroid. So she has 2 Polaroid pictures of a family of 3 Bigfoot. And I said, well, how'd that happen? And she said her sister and her husband and her sister's husband were driving on this back road. There's a back road called Avon to Eden. It's this little dirt road. You go on the backside of where we're from over to another area called Ogden Valley. And they said her husband was driving, and he said, whoa, whoa, whoa. And his wife looked up and saw something step off the road, and they came around this little turn, this little corner, and there was a family of 3 Bigfoot, a male, a female, and a young one. She got her Polaroid up and took 2 fast pictures. And I said, well, can you tell what they are? And she's like, 100%. You can see them. You know what they are. And I said, well, can I see it? I said, I would love to see that picture. She says, no. Every time she asks her sister if somebody can see it, her sister gets kind of weird about it and says, I want to keep it in the family. So her family all knows about it. Her aunts and uncles know about it. Like all of her family knows about the pictures. And she will only show them at certain times. She's not going to just give them to them and then walk away. She's going to stand right there by them and then hold them. And no one can take a picture of them. No one can have a copy. But I asked her again. I said, is there any way I can see him? And she just said, I'll try. And then I talked to her a few times, and it's just never happening. I believe her. I 100%, believe, because they are in that area where she took that picture. I've had stories from that area. It's just an amazing thing that she has 2 pictures that will definitely show that they are Bigfoot, and could pretty much prove to the world that they're real, because it's a Polaroid. You really can't fake a Polaroid back in the 80s, early 90s. And so I wish she would show them. I wish she would trust somebody enough, but she just won't do it right now. I have talked to a person who, I'm trying to think, I have so many people I've talked to. I don't know why they talk to me. I think it's because they know that I believe, I hardcore believe, and I'm not going to judge them. I think most people get scared because they're going to get judged by their family or friends. I don't care. I know people laugh at me that I do this. My wife doesn't believe it all. She wants to have a body. I don't want that. I know it's going to happen sometime. I'm sure the government's not going to have control of this body. Some hunter's going to find it or, shoot it and then put it on live TV, like Facebook or Instagram. It's going to be live. So the government don't have time to go find it and, stop it. Yeah, I believe that's going to happen soon. I hope. I've had people reach out to me who want to go do the Bigfoot hunt, and they want to bring guns. And I will not take a gun with me. I don't want anybody coming with me, bringing an AR-15 or shotgun or anything. I don't want them shot in front of me. I'm not going to take them to areas where they could have opportunity to get shot. They're just more into it for the fame. I'm not. I enjoy writing my books. I enjoy talking to people. I don't need to be on Animal Planet or anything. I like doing this kind of stuff. I like talking to people and sharing my stories. I have just a lot of Class B sightings or encounters, with sounds and wood knocks and a quick glimpse of something running away. And, my Class A was the one when I was 12 years old. And the handprint, the hand on my tent, I take as a half Class A sighting because I saw the fingertips. So another one of my stories that happened to me is I was a manager at this lodge up Logan Canyon. I was only a manager there for about 3 months. It didn't work out. But one of those nights, for some reason, it was just a weird night. I was downstairs in the office, and this couple comes downstairs. Well, the guy did. The husband did. And they're the only ones there that night at the lodge. It was just me and them. And he comes downstairs and like, well, we're going to check out. This is like 3 a.m. I said, well, is there a problem? He's like, well, we're going to check out. I said, look, well, you can tell me. I said, I'll do whatever. Do we need to do something? Is something wrong with your room? Can I change rooms for you? And he's like, no, we saw something cross your parking lot. And I said, okay. I said, was it a moose, bear? And he's like, no. He said, we saw something walk across your parking lot. I said, okay. And finally got out of him. His wife went to the bathroom. In the room they had a window that looked out in their bathroom that looked out over the parking lot. And when she looked out over the parking lot, she saw this big, hairy creature, as she said, walked across the parking lot and then stopped right as it entered the trees, turned around and looked right at her. And she said it was walking on 2 feet the whole time. And I said, okay. And the husband said he went to the window. He didn't see it, but his wife wanted to leave. So they checked out. They drove away. And so I locked all the doors. I locked the doors just to be, cautious. So I'm sitting back in the office, and as I'm sitting there, I look over, and we had a window by the office. In the office. It wasn't by it. That was lit by the outside lights. It was by this pop machine. And there was a shadow that was blocking the light. It was backlit that was standing over the pop machine. So its head was above the pop machine. And you know how tall pop machines are. So it was pretty tall. So its head was over that. It wasn't a raccoon. It was the shape of a head. And then something smacked the side of the cabin of the lodge. And, I got up and was out the door. I didn't say anything. Well, not even like a half hour later, I'm still in the office. I'm doing some stuff. I get a knock on the door. And I look, and it's the sheriff. And I open the door and said, hey, Sheriff, what's going on? He's like, we've had phone calls about a prowler up here, like something running across the road in front of cars. I said, I have a couple check out about an hour and a half ago, and they said they saw something walk across the parking lot. And where the calls were coming from, where people were having their problems with something crossing the road in front of them, was where it was going. The lodge is like right next to the highway. You had a small hill. So the creature was going towards that highway and was running in front of cars. And so he said he got 2 or 3 calls about it. That's why he's up here. I said, well, I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard, I didn't tell him, about, Sasquatch or anything. But he just said, it's something big running across the road. And he's like, if I hear anything, call him. So that night, I didn't hear anything. And that was that. Well, a few days later, I'm talking to the owner about the lodge and about stuff. And I said, hey, I haven't heard the coyotes lately. And every night I could go outside my room and hear coyotes howl. It was nonstop sometimes. And they were always in that area. I would howl and they would howl right back. And he said, well, if you don't hear coyotes, there's a Bigfoot around. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, they don't get along at all. And I said, well, okay. And he said, when we were building this lodge, we had stuff moved from our area. Like he said, there was stuff that weighed like 1,000 pounds that were thrown. And he said, a person can't do that. And so, yeah, it was just very interesting talking to him. I didn't tell him I believed. We were already on the outs about how he liked me and everything. So that's why the job didn't last. Yeah. So, I didn't tell many people I believed in it until I was like, after I got married. Like most people kind of knew, but after I was married, I was telling my wife and, sharing stories, and, she kept telling me to like write books about my stuff and, talk to people about it. I like getting their stories, their side of things and what they believe. I know some people think I didn't see it. I always tell people this. There's people who always want to see one. I said, you're never going to see. I said, you'll never see it when you want to. It's always unexpected. And people tell me, well, you didn't, see it. All these witnesses are lying. Well, you can't take thousands of witnesses over the, tens of thousands of witnesses over the years saying the same exact thing, experiencing the same thing, and say they're all lying. It's not going to happen. Every culture has a Bigfoot type thing, or type creature. Australia has the Yowie. We have Sasquatch Bigfoot. I mean, even all the Indian tribes in America have a story of that. There's a cool story. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard it. I'll just repeat it. And I can't remember if it was either in Canada or Upper Oregon or Washington. So there was a town back in the 1930s or 20s or 30s, that was in the middle of this little mountain area. And they kept having people who would go out hiking or hunting and go missing. And they had it a few times. So this one time, a guy went out hunting. He didn't come back. So they were tired of this. So they were going to set up a group to go in there and figure out what was going on, because they knew it wasn't bears, and they didn't think it was Indians, but they didn't have any idea what was going on. These people would just go out in the woods and go missing. So they set up a big meeting with the townspeople, and they had the sheriff there and some other people, and they were going to go out there, and figure out what was going on. So they're sitting in the conference room, wherever they were having this meeting, and 2 or 3 Indian tribal leaders showed up from the different tribes in that area. And they said, do not do this. You don't need to go in there. We know who they are. They have been here longer than us. We just advise you to don't go in that area of the woods. Because all the people who are missing would go into this one area of the woods. He said, that's their area. We don't go there. We avoid that area. And they said, if you go in there, you will not come out. And so they didn't do it. And they advised people stop going in that area. They never had anybody else go missing in that area. And yeah, so Native Americans they call them the forest people, is what I've been told by a few. Forest people, some people call them the star people. And yeah, they've been here longer than us, is what the Indians say and believe. I believe in a lot of what the Indians teach and believe. I've seen some strange stuff in the woods. I know some of you have too. I've heard your stories. So there's something to this thing that it's called Bigfoot. I don't know if we'll ever really get the 100% answer unless somebody puts it on a live stream where they just shot it and have it right there. I think the government covers it up, as they do a lot of things. I know they have discovered bones, and the government comes in and just takes them, as has been told on many podcasts and books. Other than that, that's all I have right now.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the 5-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. The sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. It's pick 'em and it been through it. Getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, bucking hay bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards, backwards in double time, looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Something going backwards, backwards in double time, looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm, ride chicken porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sound.